Hi everybody, I'm Ryan. Today we're going to do the sideboard guide for Cogate in Pauper. This is my favorite Pauper deck. It's actually the primary Pauper deck that I'm playing right now. We're going to take you through the 10 most popular decks in Pauper and how to sideboard against all those decks. Let's jump right into it. So this is my Cogate deck. If you'd like to understand some of the card choices, please be sure to check out the previous video posted on the channel. Well, the most popular deck in Pauper right now on Magic Online is Mono Red Burn. Against Burn, we obviously bring in the blue Elemental Blasts. I also really like Gorilla Shaman against Burn. They play the Great Furnace and then also have like a lot of like 1-mana artifacts that really matter for them. And being able to get rid of those feels powerful. And then also it's like a fine blocker. I mean, it's not a good blocker, but it's a fine blocker. And Arms of Adar is actually pretty okay as well, because they're going to be casting things like Kuldaltha Rebirth, you know, and if you allow them to go too wide and then they cast a Goblin Bushwhacker, you'll just die. And it's not fun. So cards we plan on taking out include all the Guardian of the Guild packs. While it's a really good blocker because it can't die against Mono Red Burn, unfortunately, the reality is Burn is going to go super, super wide and it's going to burn you overhead. It can't kill Burn fast enough and it doesn't block well enough to like make it worth it to be in the deck. And we are going to cut the Modern Age. So unfortunately, the Modern Age doesn't have Read Ahead. So the Modern Age is just a 2-mana spell that doesn't do anything to the board, and to a deck that's trying to kill you insanely fast, we can't beat that. So this is our sideboard, in and out. The second most popular deck on Magic Online and Pauper is the mirror match, is Caw-Gates. Against Caw-Gates, you are bringing in your red Elemental Blasts to deal with the counter magic, to deal with the Modern Age. Even sniping a Brainstorm or Preordain here or there is totally fine. We bring in Relic of Progenitus. Relic of Progenitus is really good because a lot of the Cogate matchups, often what happens is you're haymakering each other, or you like play blue-white control with each other, and then you haymaker each other with Basilisk Gates, and it's basically whoever has the most, like, or whoever has, like, the Sacred Cat first off, and being able to Relic away, bringing back a Sacred Cat is awesome. But, like, also, it's whoever has the most Prismatic Strands, because you're just, like, haymaker, and it's, like, Prismatic Strands. Then your opponent haymakers back, and you're, like, Prismatic Strands, and you haymaker towards them, be like flashback Prismatic Strands, and bringing down that number of Prismatic Strands and Sacred Cat actually makes Relic of Progenitus pretty worth it. We're also bringing in Arms of Adar. The thing is, like, often this matchup it turns into a go wide matchup with Sacred Cat and Squadron Hawk, and being able to remove those creatures is really pretty valuable. So my sideboard against this deck is actually a little weird. I bring out my Force Spikes. The thing is, like, even if you nail something early on, like, this game's going to go pretty long. And I take out my Brainstorms. The reason I take out my Brainstorms is in these counterspell matchups, especially when they're bringing in red Elemental Blasts as well, being able to do the Squadron Hawk Brainstorm combo, it's just not good. I like being able to blank red Elemental Blasts just a little bit more. And you can't really bring out the Modern Age because it gets so much value if it resolves. You can't really bring out Counterspell because it's important you get each other's Guardian of the Guild packs. And Brainstorm ends up just being like a look at the top 3, put 2 on top, and just you move on, unless you have Ash Barons, and it's tough. I don't want to do that. And I actually bring out 2 Journey to Nowheres. The reason I bring out 2 Journey to Nowheres is the most dangerous creature in my opponent's deck is Guardian of the Guild Pact. The second most dangerous creature in my opponent's deck is Sacred Cat. The thing about Sacred Cat is it'll die to Suffocating Fumes. It'll die to Arms of Adar. We'll try to make it sure it doesn't come back with Relic of Progenitus. And it's probably pretty important to deal with Journey to Nowhere, or deal with Sacred Cat with Journey to Nowhere. Squadron Hawk feels really bad to Journey to Nowhere because you know they have so many more in their hand by virtue of playing it. And the Modern Age can be handled with red Elemental Blasts. So I just want to shave on Journey to Nowhere. It's pretty good, but it's not the kind of game I want to be playing. I want to be countering the really important stuff, dealing with my opponent's permanence, and just winning the game as fast as possible with a Guardian of the Guild pack or a Sacred Cat or a Squadron Hawk. The next most popular deck, and this is the third most popular deck, is the Grixis Affinity deck. So this is the artifact deck of the format. So you bring in Dust to Dust, obviously. You bring Gorilla Shaman, obviously. Now, like bringing out Suffocating Fumes and 3 of the Prismatic Strands. Suffocating Fumes just straight up doesn't do anything. And Prismatic Strands can be good against the deck, but their Frogmites and Mirror Enforcers obviously are colorless. And so, like, you're not actually stopping that much damage by casting Prismatic Strands. Sometimes it'll, like, save a creature with from Galvanic Blast or something like that. Or they'll, like, Gixian Infiltrator you, and they have that draw, and Prismatic Strands good. But Prismatic Strands is, like, not good enough often enough that I want 4 of in my deck in this matchup. So that is your sideboard, in and out. The fourth most popular deck is Dimir Control or Dimir Tempo, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, we're bringing in our red elemental blasts. I like Relic of Progenitus against the deck because the way they kill you is through Gurmag Angler and Tolarian Terror, and being able to control their graveyard with Relic is very powerful in them not being able to cast their threats. And that is pretty much it. So we're going to be taking out Suffocating Fumes because it doesn't actually hit anything in our opponent's deck. We're going to be taking out the Spell Pierce because a lot of their spells are actually just cast for 1 mana, and it's not really worth a card to like stop them from doing that. We want to be hitting their haymakers with our counter spells. And similarly, they're really able to play around Force Spike really, really well. So I like taking out the Force Spike. And then sort of why I bring out Brainstorm in the other matchup, I want to bring out some number of Brainstorm in this matchup. You know, if we get the way that we Brainstorm counterspelled, which basically like if we Brainstorm and they know we're doing the Squadron Hawk combo and then they counterspell the Squadron Hawk, that's like so bad, and we just Brainstorm lock ourselves. It's still fine to keep some in because of Ash Barrens, but I actually like getting rid of Brainstorm in that way. The next most popular deck is Green-White Boggles. Our plan against this deck is to try to counter the important stuff and then race them. I like Harms of Adar against this deck, and that is pretty much it. Unfortunately, all their stuff is hexproof for the most part, so Journey to Nowhere is actively bad. Like it is just not. You can't cast the spell. Like it is just not really not good. So I like bringing in Relic of Progenitus just as like a draw card situation, and keeping in 1 Journey to Nowhere is fine. Sometimes they bring in 1 Young Wolf. Sometimes they bring in Scattershot Archer against you. So we like living in this situation. Next most popular deck is Boros Synthesizer. This is the 6th most popular deck. This is kind of like a Boros aggro artifact focused deck, focused around Experimental Synthesizer and like Seeker of the Way and Glint Hawk and stuff like that. So again, it's an artifact deck, so we bring in Dusted Us and our Gorilla Shamans. Many of their cards are red, and we can deal with a lot of their cards with Blue Elemental Blast, so we're bringing in Blue Elemental Blast as well. Unfortunately, like a lot of their cards have 3 toughness, so we don't really want to bring in Harms of Adar, which means we bring out our Suffocating Fumes. We bring out the Modern Age because it's just too slow, the same reason why we bring it out against Burn. I like Shaving a Guardian of the Guild Pact. While it blocks better against this deck, a lot of their stuff are like flyers, or they like do other things, and it's like only fine. And setting up a good Brainstorm is really hard against this deck, so I like bringing out 2 of the Brainstorms. Blue-Red Fairies is the next most popular deck on Magic Online. This is the Fairies deck that is splashing for like Scred and Lightning Bolt and Fire and Ice and things like that. We don't care about the red cards that much, so I don't like siding in Blue Elemental Blast, but we definitely bring in the Red Elemental Blast for the blue side of the deck. And I actually like Arms of Adar against this deck, being able to get rid of the board so that things like Spellstutter Sprite is worse and their ninjas are worse and, you know, stuff like that. I actually don't like Prismatic Strands at all in this matchup. The issue is that their thing is that they're nickel and diming you. They're hitting for you for a little bit every turn, but they're drawing a ton of cards and they're stopping you from doing what you're doing. And Prismatic Strands is really bad in situations like that. Like, yeah, like I'm gonna spend 3 mana to stop 3 or 4 damage when I could be trying to get other spells through. I don't want to play that game with my opponent. And similarly, I'm just gonna like get rid of the cute Force Spike. It's too easy for them to play around because everything's so cheap. The 8th most popular deck is the Turbo Fog deck. It's not bad against us. Like Red Elemental Blast against this deck, they have a lot of cards that are blue that really matter, like Piece to the Puzzle, you know, Stream of Thought, stuff like that. I also like bringing in Relic because quite a few of their important cards have flashback. And we take out Prismatic Strands first off because they're not going to be hitting us with like these really big hits. Bringing out Suffocating Fumes, and then we're going to bring out 1 of the Journey to Nowheres. The reason we keep the other Journey to Nowheres in is 1, we can tuck it away with Brainstorm or discard it with Modern Age if we don't want it. But a lot of these decks sideboard into some like creature heavy sideboards like Tolarian Terror and Fairy Macabre and things like that, and being able to like not die to their transformational sideboard is, I think, really important. Next most popular deck is Elves. It is just the super go wide, 1,000,000 mana, lead the Stampede, like get +X for the Elves, blah blah deck. Obviously, Harms of Adar is really good, and I don't want anything else against this deck. So we're going to be cutting a Sacred Cat alongside Harms of Adar. The reason for that is you're not getting through with Sacred Cat against Elves, and it's very often not a race. It's just the Elves get an overwhelming board state, and we don't kill our opponents fast enough, or we don't control that board state fast enough. So Sacred Cat really kind of does nothing in this matchup. But there's nothing else we want to bring in. And the 10th most popular deck in Pauper is the Ephemerate Tron deck, which is super wild and weird. It's like partially a like blink deck, partially a Tron deck, partially like a toolboxy situation. It is such a weird deck. Unfortunately, they don't actually play that many artifacts, but they do play a lot of important blue cards. So we're bringing in red Elemental Blast, and they have quite a few cards with flashbacks. So we bring in our Relic of Progenitus, bringing out Suffocating Fumes. And like a lot of these other decks, they don't actually hit us in like big chunks, so I don't like Prismatic Strands. And they're not an aggro deck, and they don't really have insanely heavy hitters for a Tron deck. They just kind of overwhelm you with cards. So I actually like Shaven a Journey into Nowhere. So there you have the sideboard guide for Cogate in the 10 most popular decks in Pauper on Magic Online. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on other social medias. Links are above me and in the description. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.